Hey guys, it's Zach, the GPX adjacent competitor, similar to Not a Clone Guy, back with another review. This time it's the ATK A9 Ultimate and the MCHOSE A7 V2 Ultra, with a handful of appearances from the Attack Shark X8 Ultra as well. These are three of the mini GPX adjacent mice that I have been asked over and over to review, somewhat fairly, as I released a short, promising review, so here it is. There was a lot of back and forth on which of these was the best in the first round, and now that we're back with the V2s of all of these mice, it's time to find out which of these is the best, and if any of them are for you. So here we have them, the A9 Ultimate and the A7 V2 Ultra with this reflective text that refuses to focus here. But anyway, we have the second generation of the, in my opinion, top GPX clones, not including the G23 V2, of which I have the Pro Edition on the way with a review coming. ATK and MCHOSE have been for some time now and continue to be the top two sort of high quality shape copying companies. You can typically go one way or the other and you'll have a pretty decent time, but I always do have a lean when it comes to each shape that they have both cloned and in general the feel that I have for their mice. I declared the ATK A9 Ultra as the Gen 1 winner when I reviewed it between these two, and that's when I had Omron Opticals. Obviously, ATK has gone to their FE optical solution since then, and MCHOSE's A7 has gone with the Omron 100Ms in their V2. Both, in my opinion, mistakes as far as quality of implementation, but from what I've been told by people in the industry, it makes sense because Omron Opticals are very inconsistent and must be binned very thoroughly to get a good feel, and there's also a supply issue with them, so both of these switches here are much more available, which sort of explains what's happened in the industry. But with that, I will shut up and get into the pricing real quick. And don't worry, we also featured the Attack Shark X8 Ultra in this video. This is not the Nordic 54 series one. I'm sure I'll get my hands on that pretty soon as well. So for the A9 Ultimate here, we have the Ultra Max 2.0. You'll want to avoid that. And the Ultimate coming in some nice colorways, the pink and red specifically, of which I have the red. But at $80, this is a hefty price. I will look out for their Black Friday mega sale, and this will apply to all mice I review in the next few days, which will be live when this video comes out. Feel free to use code DAZ for 5% off, which may put this at a much more palatable price, but baseline $80. Quick version breakdown. The Ultra Max has a $33.95, $39.50 in the Ultimate, not a big deal. Both have the Nordic 54 L15 goated MCU with crazy battery life on the new dongle. Both have an 800 mAh battery, which is actually insane for montability and weight reduction should you want to do that. The weight, 53 plus or minus 3, this is a little bit low on the estimate there. I've not tried their light blade mechanical switches, but the Ultimate I have has the FE opticals, and you do get an extra pair of skates with the Ultimate as well, just like with the Ultra, and both come with their new 8K dongle. A7 V2 much more competitively priced with a bunch of stupid versions that I just absolutely am annoyed that exist. Even their V2 Ultra Plus, which is theoretically the top end, still starts at $69, $10 cheaper than ATK. I have the V2 Ultra, which is down to $50 right now on a 10% off sale, and their Black Friday sale will be coming as well. Also, feel free to use code DASH should you want to. $20 less at this exact moment for this mouse than the ATK, and they have some different colors here as well. And then for a quick breakdown here, all the same weight, all the same battery, a bunch of different colorways in different versions for reasons unknown, a smattering of random combinations. They all have 8K pulling, wired and wireless, but neither Pro version comes with the 8K receiver. They all have Omron 100M switches. RIP. I wouldn't put too much weight into these sensor differences here with our NVIDIA graphics card named MCU here. Same coating. Interestingly enough, there is a magnetic charging dock on the Ultra Plus versions, but they maintain the same weight, which then makes you question why are these not lighter, and also makes me wonder and probably assume that the weight balancing is a bit off and back heavy in these Plus versions. I won't pull up the X8, but you can get this on Amazon anywhere from $50 to $60 regularly with very quick and easy returns should you not like it. The X8 Ultra has a $39.50, 8K pulling, and gosh dang it, Omron Opticals in the clicks. We'll cover this mouse with a rapid review later in the video. Blabbering aside, let's hit the implementations. The Omron 100Ms in the A7 V2 Ultra rebound and have a very high level of spammability, very much in place due to the shell design here, which is also the case on the A9 Ultimate. If you look here, there is a lot of potential if you press hard, I guess, for post travel given the amount of space here, but it's not an issue I run into when clicking the switches for what it's worth. It does get heavier here at the top of the button, but not much heavier. And I would say the actuation on these is a medium light. They are on the spongier side because Omron 100Ms just sort of stink in my opinion. Some people like them. I'm not a fan. Is it enough to make me not want to use this mouse if I had this as my only GPX clone option? No, but I do think it's probably the weakest part of the mouse. Looking at the A9 Ultimate, this has the FE opticals, which I do decidedly prefer to the Omron 100Ms. Interestingly enough, they don't rebound quite as quickly, but I just feel like I can click them a little bit more consistently, and they don't have quite the level of mush. They're a little bit more tactile with a mechanical feel, even though they are optical switches. A little bit less opportunity for post travel here, but a very similar overall click feel. Maybe a little bit less travel here, where where I click at the bottom of the switch. It is decently heavier here at the top of the button, more of a medium actuation than the equivalent medium light here throughout the majority of the button. Not a lot of side-to-side play. But overall, both of these click implementations are pretty good. I distinctly prefer the feel of the A9 Ultimate's FEs, but unless you're a known 100M hater, you probably won't have too many problems with the A7V2 Ultra. Scroll wheel is actually kind of interesting. The scroll wheel on the A9 Ultimate protrudes a lot more, a little bit more recessed here on the A7V2. As far as the scroll, very light but defined steps here on the A9 Ultimate. Click very spammable, about a medium force to actuate, but extremely consistent. I do like this scroll wheel. A7V2, louder, which I'm not usually a fan of. I do actually think the black on black looks sleeker on the A9. Would have loved like a color matching rubber here, but whatever. Again, a little bit louder here, more of a medium step. Click actually a little bit more spammable, a bit about the same actuation. So both these scroll wheels, plenty functional in use, no real complaints from me. Side buttons here are actually pretty interesting, very GPX-esque in their design. More of a sharp, loud click here on the A9 Ultimate. Not a lot of pre-travel, with a little bit of post-travel here, and there is some play here back and forth. Nothing crazy, but it's there. I would say these are a more satisfying click in use than the A7V2. And then over here, also very minimal pre-travel, but actually less post-travel. These are more like in-place side buttons, I would say, and there is virtually no play. So like very, very well implemented as far as they're not loose or wobbly in any way, shape, or form. They're a little less tactile, a little quieter in use. Both of these very spammable. A little bit less force needed to actuate the A7V2 side buttons. I will say I like how the A9 Ultimates feel in use and sound, but practically I do prefer the side buttons here on the A7V2, and I wish they were larger on both mice, but it is what it is. Coming to the bottom of the mice, there is not much of a difference in bottom shape profile. Obviously, there's a difference in the skate design. Large pads at the front of both, large pad at the back of the A9 Ultimate, and the GPX-esque swoop because of the stupid dongle door, in my opinion, on the A7V2. I know some of you love that. Travel with the mouse, good for you, enjoy it. The skates on the A9 Ultimate are a little bit thinner here, as you can see. Very nice, rounded, thick skates here on the A7V2 Ultra. In use, they perform relatively similarly, maybe a slight bit more friction changing directions on the A7V2, but I didn't really have complaints on either of these. We are out of the age of stupid slow black PTFE skates, and I'm all here for it. My mind likes the A9 Ultimate's double pad skate for, I guess, consistency, but like, is that even a real thing? I don't know. It's basically a toss-up as far as the skates go, with maybe some more durability here from MCHOSE. And then we have the relatively central, a bit forward of center maybe as far as the whole length of the mouse. Sensor position, that is the same on both mice. As you can see here, we do have tri-mode on the A7V2 Ultra. Not the case here on the A9 Ultimate, only 2.4 gigahertz and wired, and there is a DPI button on both mice. Let's talk coding. In the first generation, MCHOSE's coding was better. In the second generation, MCHOSE's coding is still better, but ATK is much closer. MCHOSE's coding is just very rubberized, very grippy. It feels really, really nice in hand. I don't know if they really improved it from their V1. It's just still very good. A9 Ultimate's coding from ATK is much improved, in my opinion, over the A9 Ultra, for example. 10% less rubberized than the MCHOSE coding, but for me, very satisfying. I have no issues getting a firm grip on this mouse. I experienced about the exact same amount of slippage on the back part of my hand here with my tilted grip, so functionally about the same for me. If I had to pick one, I do like the slightly rubberized feel and grip provided by the MCHOSE coding a little bit better, but again, ATK claimed to and has improved the coding on their Gen 2, I guess, V2 mice. When it comes to build integrity here, there's pretty much no flex on the side anywhere of the A9, a bit of flex here on the bottom below the sensor, but no other flex anywhere on the mouse. Extremely well built, and it does come in 2 grams heavier than the A7V2. The A7V2, you can sort of get the side buttons to protrude if you press really hard. You can see there, so there is some side flex, slightly less well reinforced here on the side, and there's a bit more flex here by the sensor, but like not a problem. None of this is noticeable at all in game. No real problems with the flex, although there is a slight bit of give here at the top if you press in the exact right spot. So both have good build integrity, but the better shell build goes to ATK. And that wraps it up for the implementation. They're both very similar, very good. The side buttons are definitely not S tier as far as all mice go. They're fine, meant to be shaped like a very other mouse that is not a clone, very similar. If you know, you know. But beside that, the skates are good, coding is good, clicks a bit of personal preference, scroll wheels both good, and honestly, they're both very well implemented mice. And now we are going to blitz review the ATK X8 Ultra, which I still have plugged in. I need to stop that. As I turn it off, you can see here on the bottom. Let's start there. Why the heck not? Tri mode, DPI button, really nice skates here from Attack Shark as they've done away with the adhesive on the sides, and the glide is quite nice here, maybe a little bit slower than the A9 Ultimate and the A7 Ultra V2, but not slow by any means. The real killer feature on this, which is priced about the same as the MCHOSE mouse and below ATK, is that it still rocks arm-on opticals because Attack Shark has arm-on opticals and MCHOSE and ATK don't, because what is this bizarro universe that we're living in? Either way, the arm-on opticals in this feel very nice. There is not a lot of pre or post travel, there's not a lot of side-to-side play, a medium actuation vibration at most at the top of the button, but they're still very spammable. Maybe a little bit more travel than I'd like here at the bottom, but they're very satisfying to click. That classic arm-on optical feel. So if I had to pick between all three of these mice, the clicks would go to the X8 Ultra. The scroll wheel has very light steps, lighter than I would like. You can feel them, but I would like them to be more defined. The click, very spammable, if not a bit stiffer than I'd like, but it's fine. Probably the weakest of the three scroll wheels. The side buttons are nice in that they're glossy, and they are positioned, as you can see here, a little bit further up on the mouse than the other two, but not much. I've heard from a friend that his are a little bit better than mine. Mine don't protrude quite as much as I'd like, and I feel as if they sink a little bit too far in like the side profile of the shell when I press them. They do feel and sound cheaper than the side buttons on the other two mice, so although I like the glossy side button coating, and they're very light and spammable and plenty functional, this is the lowest quality implementation of the side buttons across all three of the mice. TacShart's coating, TacShart apparently, is what I'm calling it these days. Coating is pretty rubberized and grippy, actually a little grippier than ATK's. In fact, on the clicks here, for example, it feels grippier than MCHOSE's, but on the side, not quite as much. It's closer to MCHOSE's in the rubberized quality, a little bit grippier than ATK's, and TacShark has actually nailed the coating, at least on their white mice, which is the only color of their mice that I have tried, because black mice are boring and dumb. And if you like black mice, it's okay, I forgive you. Almost forgot to mention, sensor, pretty much the same, ever so slightly lower, very central. Build integrity, really not much side flex here to write home about. The standard slight bit of flex below the sensor. No real build integrity issues anywhere on the mouse. It passes with flying colors. So if you are someone who doesn't want to deal with shipping from China and has this on Amazon, I can give this a very strong recommendation. I will talk about performance later, of which this has also the worst of the three, but I'm not sure that really matters. I didn't feel any issues in game. I like the coating. I like the clicks. You may know after watching me, those are the top two things I look for in a mouse. Is this my top option for a GPX clone? No, but is it very good? Yes, and crap, I just said the C word. And yes, at this point in the video, the actual GPX2 from Logitech will make an appearance for most of the point of calling out the side ridge bump here on the right side of the mouse. Maligned or loved, depending on who you are. That is not present on the X8 Ultra, not present on the A7 V2 Ultra, and distinctly present on the A9 Ultimate. Now, there is one more shape nuance that you may not have even known existed on GPX-ish shapes, and that is there is a differing level of slight like thumb groove here under the side buttons on each of these mice. There is a slight more groove here than I ever really realized on the GPX, and that's because that is flat as can be, completely almost gone here on the A7 V2 Ultra. This has the flattest of the sides. There's a bit more of a nice little thumb groove of comfort, which is right where my thumb rests when I hold this shape on the X8 Ultra, also apparent here on the right side. And this is most defined and will sort of be why I lean towards the A9 Ultimate as my favorite, not including value and price, because it has the most defined little bit of like dip, like there's almost like a hole to just sit your thumb right there and lock in, which feels absolutely amazing when I'm holding this mouse. It's a very slight and subtle difference here. You can sort of see a little groove right there, but I really like how ATK accentuated that a little bit more, and it feels more comfortable and makes the mouse feel a little bit less potato in hand. So props to ATK. Not sure why I sat all of the other mice over here on top of my gigantic pad stack. Let's bring them back. Anyway, there's no conclusive what is the best GPX competitor in this video as I work my way towards my ultimate GPX competitor list. I'm just going to tell you which of these three mice I think is for who. Again, if you're the easy Amazon shopper, you're not looking for exotic colors, or you're a diehard arm-on optical lover who does not want to mod them into these two mice, I have no problem recommending for about $55 on Amazon the TacShark X8 Ultra. Between these two mice, you're going to find them about $20 difference on their websites, and I can't really justify going for the A9 Ultimate for $20 more than the A7 V2 Ultra, although when I got the A7 V2 Ultra, I was whelmed to say the least. When I got the ATK A9 Ultimate, I felt a little bit more impressed. I don't know if because that was just dongle placebo, which you'll find out jokingly was completely BS in here in a few minutes. I am just completely not a fan of ARM 100Ms, and I don't like how completely flat potato the sides of this mouse are in comparison to the ATK A9 Ultra or Ultimate. I hate how many versions there are, but if you're looking for a potato for a little bit less and it's overall well implemented, this is a good option. If you're willing to lock in on your one GPX shaped mouse, want to spend a bit more, or really on AliExpress, not that much more, I think the ATK A9 Ultimate is my favorite of these three mice, mostly due to the slightly more defined grooves over here. The fact that their coating is now more than passable. As much as I have talked about them, don't hate the FEs and prefer them to ARM 100Ms. And overall, it just feels more premium than the TacShark, which was honestly the closest competitor. I would like you to note though, I purchased these all with my own money. This was only $50 on AliExpress before racking cash back for those of you who have it. This was only $38 before cash back. So realistically, depending on your budget, these probably all fall into your budget if you're willing to go off the beaten path a bit and try AliExpress. Really not much risk in doing so. And I think I paid close to $30 after cash back on this and close to the low 40s after cash back on the A9 Ultimate. But now let's jump into some performance. And this is actually, in my opinion, as usual, when there are findings, the most interesting part of the video. Let's hit it. When we talk performance, I always do interval update testing as my main sort of evidence that I show, although I do testing beyond that behind the scenes. I'm typically interested in wireless interference and then general performance when there's only one dongle plugged in, and there were interesting findings across the board here. If I had to guess, I would have said that the Attack Shark probably had the worst performance, followed by the A7V2 Ultra as they're still on the Realtek chipset and don't seem to have updated and have a micro dongle with an extender, and then ATK has their new gem dongle, they're calling it, that's compatible with the 54 series, which again, I forgot to call this out explicitly, will give you a hell of a lot more battery life than on the A7V2, and it's an 800 milliamp hour battery as opposed to 500 in the V2, so really this mouse could last for weeks and weeks at a time without dying if you're not running it on max 8K, 20K FPS, blah, blah, blah. So that is one more consideration for you if you're a long-living battery guy, dude, man, or girl. But anyway, let's just jump into the results. So starting with my suspicion being correct that the X8 Ultra on 2K with wireless interference occurring was the worst performer. You would expect a majority of the pulls to be at 0.5 milliseconds here. There were a handful at 1, which is not unusual for mediocre 2K implementations, and a bigger number than I'd like to see at 1.5 milliseconds, as well as some blips out here. This is not horrible. This is not something you will necessarily feel in game if you're not sensitive to sensor performance, but it's not something that you love to see. But again, for the average user, I wouldn't deter them from buying the mouse due to this. Then we have the A9 Ultimate, or Ulti-Empty, as I misspelled it here, with wireless interference, and this is better, but not amazing. There is a majority of the pulls around 0.5 milliseconds, but there is a large amount up here at 1, and clusters as you can see along here. So again, not too bad really, because we're not getting anywhere above 1.4 with a few blips, but shockingly, not the best. As somehow, MCHOSE's Realtek micro dongle implementation here has by far the best results in my testing across all tests, including this update time interval testing. There is a large cluster of pulls between 0.4 and 0.6 milliseconds, very few anywhere near 1, and just really this is the cleanest of them all. Honestly, this is one of the cleaner looking 2K implementations that I've tested recently with multiple dongles plugged in. I'm very impressed. I guess I now understand why MCHOSE is like, screw it, we're not going to implement Nordic 54 series. Our mice last long enough and our wireless performance is quite good. Who knew MCHOSE was sort of slaying it? I sure as heck did not. Quick peek at the X8 without wireless interference, just still the least good of the sensor implementations with these blips and outliers here, and still a handful of pulls at 1.5 milliseconds. The A9 by itself also a little bit better than with wireless interference, but still not amazing with a handful of pulls here at or above 1 millisecond. Pretty decent, but not spectacular. Not much different, not really affected by wireless interference. That was a theme across these mice. Wireless interference, they weren't overly susceptible to. There were just some baseline differences in their performance, at least in the results. And then here we have the MCHOSE A7V2 Ultra, which beside with this one blip up here, spectacular looking graph here for 2K, if I'm being honest with you. A large majority of pulls between like 0.7 and 0.3 here. This is a very clean looking 2K graph, and I continue to be very impressed with what I'm seeing from MCHOSE in their wireless solution. I'm going to blitz the software just in case somebody asked about it. Here's Attack Shark's Complex WebDriver, up to 8K, standard settings. You've seen all this before. UART encoded mode, long distance. They have hunting shark competitive, blah, 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 20K, 0 millisecond delay, lights, firmware, that's that. You got ATK's Hub 3.0, DPI under performance, we have up to 8K, 20K mode, long distance, 0 millisecond delay. You can do sensor rotation should you want to. I didn't mess with that. And adjustable LOD with the tiny steps here on the sensor down to 0.7. And MCHOSE's Web Hub, you've all seen this before as well. With DPI setting, you can separate X and Y, not sure why you would. 20K mode, up to 8K pulling, 0 to bounce, motion sync, ripple control, angle snap. They also have sensor rotation on this mouse, and that's about it for the software. Now let's hit a sound test. Quick aside, would I ever suggest you buy the GPX2 over any of these mice here? No, don't do it. As far as weights go, stock GPX for reference is 58.2 grams, no puck. Attack Shark X8 Ultra comes in at 59.4 grams at stock, 57.4 for the A7V2 Ultra. Apologies for the hard to read numbers on the blue mouse pad. And then the ATK A9 Ultimate at 59.1 grams. I'm actually getting the narrowest part of the grip width on the A9 Ultimate at 59.2. All three other mice come in at 58.6 there, so this is actually the widest of the clones, which is odd that I decided that I like that. That is due to the grooves here. What's interesting is that groove part higher up on the mouse mouse is actually 59.1 millimeters on the A9 Ultimate, and to prove that I'm not loony, it's 59.5 millimeters on the flatter-sided A7 V2 Ultra. Because we're here, also 59.1 on the X8 Ultra, and 59 on the GPX. We get GPX back flare at 62.7, X8 a bit wider at 62.9, A9 Ultimate just a bigger GPX in general at 63.4, and a slightly larger 63 on the A7 V2 Ultra. I got the hump height on all of these mice within 0.1 millimeters, right around 39.4, plus or minus 1. So that about wraps it up for my thoughts on these three mice. They're all good in their own right. I wouldn't feel bad recommending any of them. Personally, in hand, I like the feel of the A9 Ultimate the best. I prefer the onboard opticals, the X8 Ultra. I like the coating the most on the A7 V2 Ultra, for example, which just gives you an idea of how there's like a back and forth, up and down across all of these mice. I would base your decision mostly on the things I mentioned in this video, your budget, and your preference of switch, while keeping in mind that it does seem that MCHOSE has the best performing wireless implementation of the three. But between them all, I don't think you can really go wrong. Please subscribe and like if you enjoyed the video. You can follow me on X at DasherZach. Check out the MouseCast podcast, as well as my peripheral Discord server. And with that, we'll see you.